you might not see a way to achieve that goal. You might not see a way to go from failing to passing. You might not see a way to get healthier. You might not see a way. But here's what I want to tell you. The path presents itself when you take a step. And that first step is the hardest one. But if you're willing to take it, the path will show itself. I'm going to start off with a story. There was this little girl who she's 9 years old, and she's growing up in severe poverty. She has to wear a potato sack to school because her family can't afford money. Then, without getting this video taken down, people in her family, they got a little handsy. We'll put it like that. So she runs away from home at 13. She runs away, starts living with her dad. She eventually gets a job working at a news station. And she's reading the news, just local papers, nothing crazy. 32 years old. She works her way up through the entertainment industry. And she starts her own show. That woman is now a multi-billionaire. Her name is Oprah Winfrey. And what I want to tell you is this. When we look at her story, we can see somebody who, despite all the challenges, despite not having money, despite barely having an education, despite having to wear a potato sack as clothing, despite, people getting handsy, despite all of that, she was able to succeed and thrive because the way presented itself. Even in the dark, there is a light. As cliche as that statement sounds, there is a light. We just have to remember that the tunnel can be very long, but somewhere down there is the light. And we just keep one foot in front of the other. And on days when it's hard to see the light, you just got to remember, you just got to remind yourself, it's somewhere down there. For those who are new, my name's Lawrence, and I'm a public speaker. I help teens and young adults improve their confidence, self-love, decision-making skills, all that wonderful stuff, so that they can not only improve academically, but in life after graduation. And in my own experience, when I started this channel, when I started making videos, when I started speaking and writing my books and all the things I do, I didn't really have anything figured out. All I knew was I was able to take myself from feeling really down, really hopeless, just overall a mess. I used to play like 9 hours of video games a day to avoid having to think about my problems. I used to just avoid and run from my problems instead of facing them. But when I finally made the decision to say, I'm going to do something about this, the path began to show itself. I couldn't see the full thing. I could just see the next step and the next step and the next step. And I was willing to take the steps necessary. I was willing to walk the path even when it was hard, even when it was scary, even when it meant having to get honest with myself and admit the fact that I was procrastinating, admit the fact that I didn't want to think about all the stuff I went through when I was a kid, even when it meant having to share vulnerable parts of my life, even when it meant facing judgment and hate comments and people just not supporting, even when it meant doing things that were very outside my comfort zone, I was willing to walk the path. And with each day, you get a little better. You learn a bit more. And at the end of the path, you realize that there really is no end to it. It's constantly building. And that's the same thing about you. You're never fully done. And that's a really good thing. It doesn't mean that you say, I'm not good enough. My art isn't good enough. I'm not ready yet. No, what it means is that you constantly get better. No matter how good you are right now, there's always more. It's as if life, your skill, just anything becomes more beautiful because you realize that the more you do it, the better you get. So you might be a A- student right now, like you have straight A-, but you can get to A+. And even then, you can start taking advanced classes if that's what you want to do. And that's just a metaphor for the fact that you can go as far as you decide. You can go as high as you want. You can really do it. But it can be hard to hear that and say, but Lawrence, how can I do it? How can I? I don't have money. Well, neither did Oprah Winfrey. I don't have people supporting me. Neither did many famous people like actresses. I'm an orphan. My parents kicked me out. I'm pretty sure it was, no, it wasn't Tyler Perry. It was another famous actor. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But there are many people throughout history. Oh, Marilyn Monroe. She was an orphan. And she eventually became like the most famous woman in the world at one point. And we can look at stories like that and see ourselves in them. Not to say that, oh, I have to be like them, but we can relate to them in a way. We can see that, yes, I might come from a low-income neighborhood. Yes, I might have a certain mental health condition. Yes, I might be very shy and unconfident and nervous, but if they could do it, I could do it too. Like, for me, I have autism. So when people hear me talk, sometimes they're like, why does he talk like that? Why is his body language like that? Why does he move so much? Why is his facial expression like that? And at first, when I started making these videos, I would kind of get in my own head about that. I'm like, I don't talk like Tony Robbins. I don't talk like these people. But you don't have to be like those people. You don't have to be like somebody else. You don't have to try and box yourself in to the world's expectations. You don't have to try and box yourself in to what your family thinks of you. You don't have to box yourself in to what you were told growing up. You can step out the box. And you realize that, hold up, this box that I thought was everything, there's a whole world out here. And this world is so much bigger than we think it is. There's a whole galaxy and a universe and all these big things. Like, in the grand scheme of things, there's so much that we just haven't experienced. There's so much to life, but you have to be willing to take that step. You have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone. That might look like saying hi to people that you don't know, making some new friends. That might look like, leaving your city and seeing a different place, like going on a vacation somewhere. That might look like trying out for a sports team. That might look like public speaking. It might look like posting your first song. It might look like starting an art business. It might look like so many things. Last year, actually, I was speaking at a conference, and there was this girl there who, she wanted to start making an art business. So she started asking me, like, well, what should I do? And I said, well, have you posted your art? And she was like, no, I'm kind of nervous of what people are going to think about it. I'm nervous that they're going to judge it. What if, it's not good enough? And I said, well, let me see it. It was beautiful. Like, her art is so majestic. And I said, you should really post it. Like, I understand that you're afraid that people might judge you or they might leave a comment or all these what ifs, but if you put it out there, I can guarantee you somebody's gonna love that. And eventually she took that advice. And guess what happened? She recently won multiple awards for her art. See what happens when you're just willing to take that first step, when you're willing to put something out there. Imagine if Michael Jackson never made music. If he sat back and said, I'm not good enough yet. They're gonna judge me. I'm too young. He started making music when he was like 5 years old or something. Imagine if Michael Jordan or LeBron James or Kobe Bryant, imagine if they said, I'm not good enough to try out for the NBA. Imagine that. Imagine if Tony Robbins or Michael B. Jordan or whoever you look up to, whatever famous actress, musician, artist, poet, whoever. Imagine if they just said, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to start. Imagine if your mom or dad never said, that person's out of my league. Imagine that. You wouldn't even have been born watching this video if one of your parents didn't have the willingness, the confidence, the audacity to say, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. You want to go on a date? Imagine that. So in the reverse, imagine how good your life can be if you say, yes, right now I might feel nervous. I might feel afraid. I might be scared, but I'm going for it. And you take that step and you realize that, okay, I took the first step, and now I take the next step, and the next step, and the next step. And you don't need to know how you'll get from A to Z. You just have to know that, where am I going? And what step do I need to take? Do I need to say hi to people? Do I need to start going to the gym? Do I need to start studying for my math test? Because I know where I want to go, I have to just figure out what the next step. And it could be very simple. It could be scary. It could be a lot of fear. But the funny thing is that fear is only as bad as we make it in our head. It's like skydiving. I've never been skydiving, but I would assume that that's a pretty scary thing. Jumping out of a plane, 20,000 feet in the air, you're probably thinking, what if the parachute don't work? What if I fall and I get tangled up in the wires? What if I hit the ground? What if I get smacked by a bird? What if what if the parachute doesn't work and I die? What if? What if all these things? And you just making it worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And the longer you stand there looking at the ground, the scarier it gets, the worse it gets. But when you just jump, now you're in the game. Now you're like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. But then you lock in and you're like, okay, all right, what's the step? What do I need to do? I took the first step. Now I need to pull the chute. That's the next step. Okay, now what do I need to do? Now I need to just hold the wires. And then what's the next step? When you hit the ground, do not have your legs stiff. You want to squat, and then you want to land nice and smooth. So, because we know where we're trying to get to the ground safely, we know what's the first step. Jump out the plane. What's the next step? Fall for a little bit. And then you pull the parachute. And then you hold the wires. And then you land nice and smooth in a field of grass. However, if you keep standing up there the whole time, you just make it worse and 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 worse. And this is why most people never start. They're standing there thinking of all the ways it can go wrong. But I want to challenge you to ask yourself, how can I? How can I, despite my circumstances, despite lack of money, despite lack of resources, despite all this, how can I? Because when you ask yourself that question, you'll realize that we live in a time where we have some of the best resources ever for free. We got YouTube. We got ChatGPT. We got Google. We have libraries. We have access to information that would have been millions of dollars some years ago. We live in a time where it is possible. Yes, it might be challenging. Yes, it might seem delusional. Yes, it might seem like, how can I overcome this? But when you ask yourself, how can I? And you take a moment to pause, you start seeing possibilities. You start seeing opportunities. You start seeing, wait, I could try this. I could try that. I could do a little bit of this. I could do a little bit of that. And it becomes possible. The story of Oprah Winfrey. Growing up so poor that she had to wear a potato sack as clothing, and then she became a billionaire. The story of Tyler Perry sleeping in his car. The story of Jim Carrey sleeping in his car with his whole family when he was a teenager. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Jim Carrey. The story of so many people throughout history. The story of we can even go far back. The story of the civil rights activists getting persecuted by the government in the pursuit of getting rights for African Americans and people of color. The story of immigrants, like a lot of Asian immigrants, they came here to escape a war. The story of so many people who immigrated not knowing languages, who were able to overcome poverty, who were able to overcome such insane situations. And we can find people who we relate to, because Maybe you're like, all right, Lawrence, yes, I see the example of people who were able to immigrate despite wars, but I don't relate to that. Well, what do you relate to? I relate to not having money. Oprah Winfrey, she ain't had money. Now she got a whole lot of it. I relate to being homeless. Jim Carrey, he was homeless. Oh no, Tyler Perry, Steve Harvey. So many people who we look up to nowadays slept in their car or they slept on the streets. We can find people we relate to. Or maybe you're like, Lawrence, I want to write a book, but everybody keep rejecting me. Every time I say, hey, I'm trying to get this book published. You could think of somebody like J.K. Rowling. She wrote Harry Potter and got rejected like 12 times. Now she's a billionaire. All because she said, that door closed, but I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go here until she made it happen. And even then, now we have Amazon KDP. You can publish your own books. You don't have to wait for the middleman. We spend so much of our life waiting for permission. We spend so much of our life waiting for somebody to say, yeah, that's a good idea. We spend so much of our life waiting for the middleman, but you don't need to anymore. We live in a time where you're the middleman. You are the product creator, the product distribution, the source. You could do it. You could do it. It might be hard. It might be difficult. You might have obstacles. You might have challenges. You might have real things in the way, but we think it's a brick wall. We think our obstacles are something that we just can't cross. We think it's not possible. We think that it's like this brick wall in front of us. But what if I go around? What if I go under? How about I go over? Or maybe it wasn't even a real obstacle at all. Maybe it was a giant piece of paper and I could have just, wait, this was paper the whole time, and ripped my way through. Or you might need somebody else to help you. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask people for help because you might have this obstacle in your way. And you ask yourself, all right, has somebody else figured out how to get through this? Has somebody else figured out how to go from minimum wage to 6 figures? Has somebody else figured out how to go from F- to A+? Has somebody else figured out how to run a public speaking business? Has somebody else figured out how to do XYZ? Yes, somebody has figured that out. YouTube.com, how to XYZ, how to fix XYZ, how to start XYZ, how to lose weight in the gym, how to build muscle, how to study, how to focus better, how to improve my attention span, how to blah, blah, blah. Type it into YouTube. The information is there. We live in a time where you can get the answer. However, are you willing to do the work? Because somebody can give you the answer, but they can't do the work for you. They can't spoon feed you. They cannot be there with you 24/7. You have to learn how to pick up the hammer and knock down these obstacles. You have to learn how to get the shovel and dig your way through. You have to learn how to climb a ladder and overcome. You have to learn how to see the problem, identify the problem, find the solution, and go around. You have to be the one to be there for yourself when nobody else is. And I don't mean be there when nobody else is in the sense that you're not going to have people who support you. I mean be there for yourself when you're laying in bed by yourself. Be there for yourself when you're just sitting on the train by yourself. Be there for yourself when maybe you're starting a business and you're the only one doing it. Because that's the position I'm in right now. I'm running it by myself. And I have people who support me. I have people who give me knowledge, give me resources, give me guidance. And I am so appreciative of these people. However, if I don't sit down and write the email, it ain't getting done. If I don't hit click record and post, it's not getting posted. I gotta be the one to hold myself accountable. I gotta be the one who's there for me, even if I don't have somebody else standing next to me saying, hey Lars, you need to do this. Hey Lars, you need to do that. You gotta learn to be that for yourself. It could be as simple as making a Google Calendar and writing down what you need to do. I need to do X, Y, Z at this time, at that time, at that time. It could be that simple. Or it could look like, you have a friend who helps you. But even then, you got to be that friend for yourself. You got to be the one who's there for you, even when other people aren't. Because when you start that business, when you start going to the gym, when you start studying, when you start trying to improve your life, that fear, that overthinking, that what if, it's gonna come knocking. What if people judge you? You remember what everyone said about you growing up? What if they make fun of you? People definitely talking about you in their group chat. People definitely doing this. But why do you think you could do that? People like us don't succeed. 95% of the businesses fail. It's all whispering in your ear, but you gotta learn how to listen to that voice that says, yeah, but what if I win? What if I succeed? What if I make it happen? What if I get into Harvard? What if I start that business? What if I become a doctor or a plumber or whatever it is that you want to do? What if? You gotta listen to the good what if. You gotta listen to that side of you that says what's possible, not what's impossible. Because you can make the impossible possible because I am possible. You're possible. You're the one who's gonna make it possible. Even though there may be a wall in your way, even though you may have obstacles, even though there may be challenges, you can find a way through. You just gotta take the first step. And eventually, the path becomes clearer. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. If you're looking for a speaker for your school, podcast, or youth organization, you can contact me with the link below, as well as one-on-one coaching calls and my books and products. Have a good day.